To say this game franchise means a lot to me would be an understatement. I have a video nearing 2 hours analysing every nook and cranny of the controversial sequel, and though I haven't had the chance to detail my love about the first, I can tell you right now that it's every bit the game everyone says it is, which is why I'm so happy that this adaptation honours it so well whilst also having its own additions to better ground future developments. One of the core aspects of The Last of Us, and more so in this adaptation, is the relationship between violence and love. To depict that connection, the story hinges itself on a father and daughter dynamic. After all, a parent would do anything for their child. And typically that idea of love conquering all is a positive thing, which is shown in The Last of Us. Joel is only able to heal from his grief through the love of another daughter. It gives him something worth fighting for. However, that intense feeling of love, especially for a parent and their child, is primal. It's prone to greater reaction and outburst. Hence, when someone Joel deeply loves is in danger, he enters a state of extreme action, whether that's panicking or methodically killing anyone in his path. It's not just the main characters where this is present. As mentioned, the connection between love and violence is a central theme. Henry would do anything to protect his sick younger brother, which results in him killing a rebel leader in order to attain medicine for his brother. However, when Henry does this, he spawns a cycle of violence, as someone who loved that leader, namely his sister, goes on to pursue Henry until she gets her revenge. Even the two lovers in Bill and Frank take an extreme form of self-sacrifice in the ode to their love for one another. It really is all over this story, which I appreciate. I applaud this level of focus toward the idea of love and violence being tethered together. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that this is actually handled better than the video game, since that doesn't apply this idea towards as many characters. Another thing I think the show nails is something entirely original, the addition of new scenes from the past. This was a nice touch that immediately clarified details about the virus, but also amped up the stakes. In particular, the opening scene of episode 2 is eerie and terrifying, as it shows how the first discovery of the virus was handled. And instead of scrambling for a cure, the doctor who observes this virus, without hesitation, pleads with the officers to bomb everyone in the area in order to avoid the spread. Her smooth and calm demeanor hits home about how terrifying this virus is, how helpless it is, as she so quickly accepts its reality. These were all great additions, but I feel the show may have missed the opportunity to start every episode of the season with life before the virus. It would have been very unique, as well as be an opportunity for the creators to be creative with the source material. Regardless, as for the central characters, they were all fantastic. Bella Ramsey is Ellie, and I'll be honest, she would have never been the person I would have thought to play this character, but it's genuinely hard to think of anyone else doing better. So many video game adaptations take the easy route of casting a popular actor to lead an important role, but this show picked who embodied the characters the best. You can actually close your eyes and hear Ellie from the game. The way she talks, the accent, the attitude, it's all there, though more importantly, Ellie's vulnerability is also perfectly displayed too. Her pushing Joel as she expresses she has never had anyone who she's loved stay beside her is a heartbreaking moment given the weight it deserves, and her falling into hysterics after being preyed upon by Daniel to then instantly calm down in the arms of Joel captures her character's emotional growth with him so well, how one another can find comfort from each other. Fundamentally, this is why it's so annoying that some people have jumped on her casting. Even though she brings a fantastic performance, some are fixated on her supposedly being less flattering to the eyes than her digital counterpart. This is weird for so many reasons, one reason being Ellie is 14 years old. You wanting her to live up to a beauty threshold is a bit creepy. To also constantly abuse Bella Ramsey, a young actress herself, for being supposedly ugly is messed up. It doesn't sit right with me personally. But my strongest point here is that Ellie's appearance is actually arguably more in line with her character in the TV show than the game. Bella Ramsey looking less conventionally attractive than her video game counterpart fits in with the fact that Ellie is a rogue misfit. She is an outcast that's been through a lot with a heart of gold. Another aspect of Ellie that sets her apart from maybe other kids, in particular Joel's first daughter, is her relationship with violence. Sarah was an opposing force against it, epitomized in her refusal to take the knife and her fear when she sees Joel act violently. Ellie, on the other hand, is an acceptance of it. Of course, this is partly due to the world she's grown in, but she literally seeks out lethal weaponry and carries a knife that means a lot to her, and when Joel protects her from a soldier, she is in love with the idea that someone fought for her, not frightened by it. Someone could also interpret this as the light of the world going away with Sarah's death. Ellie's existence shows us how crude and dark this world has become, as even someone, like the children of this world, are connected to violence. In contrast to that is Ellie's loud, persistent personality. She is a never-ending joke machine, which eventually wins over Joel. I loved seeing the two bond again. Both of them needed each other. Joel needed a purpose, a daughter, someone who would be able to show him the light and bring him back from his anger and resentment. Equally, Ellie, who was an orphan, longed for a parental-like figure, so becomes attached to Joel as he's the longest she's ever been with an adult figure that hasn't tried to get rid of her. The show nails all of these qualities and executes the bonding between the two perfectly. However, praise aside, there are aspects I don't like about the show, things that shifted it away from being a spectacular, amazing piece of television it could have been to just being another great one. Joel in the game is far better than this iteration of his character. And I know it's unfair to compare and the show is its own thing, which is all true, but since we do have a version of this story already, I can compare which aspects I liked better. The game does a far better job of conveying how terrible of a person Joel was. In the show, it feels like a light version. For me, it's fundamental that we see this aspect of Joel. I'd prefer it if the story stopped telling me all the time about how bad he was. Let me see that part of him. Another thing I disliked was how toned down the violence was. Before release, I already knew that this would be less of a thing in this iteration, as the games will use violence to appease the gamer's need to do stuff between big moments. However, part of the brilliance behind great games, such as The Last of Us, is how focused it is. The violent gameplay is not just a mechanic anymore, but a character of its own, especially for Joel and Ellie. It's one of the reasons why Joel in the game feels far more dangerous and further warped into his grief. After the death of his daughter, it suggested that Joel didn't just lose his humanity, he submitted it away by becoming a violent individual. I believe he did this as an attempt to distance himself from the feelings of grief, as eventually he'd become numb to the idea of feeling, meaning he wouldn't feel the hurt of losing his daughter. Of course, this doesn't work, which puts Joel in an even darker place. Importantly, that man Joel became is still with him when he meets Ellie. We see more than just flashes of it with how ruthless and brutal he can be. As a result, this makes his eventual turn to a content father figure for Ellie that much more significant of a transition. It holds greater meaning as we see what Ellie saves him from. Also, as explained before, Ellie is very much intertwined with the idea of violence, something that the show is teasing. And I don't want to spoil anything that may potentially happen, but there is a core moment in the second game where you don't play as her. This allows you to see how dangerous she has become. With this TV iteration though, I don't know if I can buy into that transition, as Ellie hasn't been shown to be nowhere near as capable as her video game counterparts. Also, before I wrap up, can we just stop calling this the end to the video game adaptation curse, because it's such an old and lazy cliche. In fact, it's quite insulting to series like Arcane and Castlevania that have put out more than impressive outings to firmly bury that idea. So let's just stop that. Regardless, I'm getting slightly distracted, and I also don't want to detract from the fact that The Last of Us is another great show to add to the ever-increasing catalogue of good video game adaptations. There is strong thematic focus and a firm understanding of its characters. I'm genuinely excited about the second season, but also skeptical about how they will execute it and bring it to life, with certain omissions such as the tone-tight violence being a big thing.